Good morning, everyone. It is Monday, January 31st. It is the last trading day of January 2022. And this is Morning Market Movers, where we take a look at hotspots in the markets and do some live analysis for day trading. I am Todd Rich with Nadex. With me, Brian
Yes,
Caprice
there's
from
a baby here.
Keep Trading Simple, as well
Todd, your
as
sound cut
Chip.
off. Or my sound cut off.
Oh, did your sound cut off or did my sound cut off? Uh-oh. Can you hear me? Uh-oh.
Todd, I think your sound cut off, or mine did. One of the two.
Can you not hear me now? Uh-oh. Houston, we have a problem.
No, never mind. It was me. It was Kit. Problem
Kip,
solved. It was Kit.
he's causing all sorts of trouble this morning.
Yeah, it was Kit. I was like,
I
wait, what
blame
just
him
happened?
entirely. All right,
good.
cool.
Yeah, it was totally Kit. He's gone. Mom
All
got
right,
him.
all right. Woo,
We're back.
saved. All right, we're back. All right, what do we? It is a quiet Monday. This week we do have some. I'm looking at my notes. The couple things that we're going to be looking at. One, we got to take a peek at the Nasdaq. The headline really today is the Nasdaq is closing. I mean, it is looking to try to open green today, but Nasdaq is looking to close its worst month since October of 2008. And if you remember October of 2008, it was ugly. And yeah, that's what it's going to be. You know, uh, if we get a big rally today in the Nasdaq, maybe it won't be worse than that, but it is still pretty ugly. Now, Nasdaq did have some earnings already that have come out. We've had Microsoft and Apple last week, and they blew them out of the water. Absolutely crushed it, better than ever. But we had Netflix and Tesla pulling the Nasdaq back down. The other big names in the Nasdaq, because it is a weighted index, so these names make a difference and impact the price of the index. We've got Amazon, we've got Google, and we've got, I don't even know, what do we call it? Facebook Meta? I still
I'm
call it
just calling it
Facebook.
Facebook. I don't care.
Yeah,
They
all
can,
right, I'm going to
they
go
can
with
tell me
Facebook.
I'm old. It's not named that anymore, but I'm calling it Facebook.
Okay, boomer. You're not even a boomer.
Exactly. Well, are you going to change the name of the movie?
Yeah, right. I love it.
I mean, we're going to call it The Meta.
The Meta. We've got Amazon, Facebook, and Google with earnings this week. So Nasdaq very much in play. The other thing that's going on is we're going to have to take a look at the foreign exchange markets. This Thursday, Bank of England and the European Central Bank. So we're going to get interest rate decisions out of both the UK and Europe. We've got non-farm payrolls on Friday. Tonight we've got Australia, the Royal Bank of Australia. Their interest rate decision is this evening, so we certainly are going to take a look at the Aussie dollar, which, by the way, is the one thing that's really moving around today. I think the Aussie US dollar is up a full percent. Aussie showing strength. Everyone anticipating that they're going to be raising interest rates. So they're trying to price that into the market already. So we're definitely going to take a peek over there. Brian, let me flip it over to you.
Sure.
I say let's start with the Nasdaq, and then we could take a look at the Aussie for tonight,
Mhm.
and maybe just some of the other currencies that we might want to be taking a peek at this week. Oh wait, you know what? Before we jump into it, before I flip it over to Brian, I got to remember to do this. Trading involves risk. It may not be appropriate for everyone. Any trading decisions you make are solely your responsibility and at your own risk. And this is an educational session. Please do not construe anything Brian or I say as a buy or sell recommendation. We are doing this for your education purposes. All right, now let's flip it over and let's take a peek at that NASDAQ.
Yeah. I mean, right now, headline wise, Monday morning, you always want to see kind of, all right, what's been the news? What did I miss over the weekend? And really, it's quite tame today. With everything going on, we know that the biggest contagion that we really had to watch out for was Russia. The last thing we saw was 7 hours ago. The U.S. Senate close to Russia sanctions over Ukraine. But we're not really. It's not. We're not plastered, right? There's no countdown. 12 hours in the war, so we're not really seeing a lot. There. So that's always a positive thing going into into Monday morning. Today, as far as exposure, what could happen? We have Chicago PMI coming in, and it's expected to be a little bit more negative, which I think is fine. And then we have one of the FOMC members, George, is speaking, and it's talking about monetary policy outlook at the hybrid economic event in Indiana. So I'm not familiar with that one. There is going to be questions, but just one of those things. It's really kind of a bland day. And again, I think everything will be focused more on indices today. And then obviously, as Todd mentioned, we'll cover this later, but Aussie rate tonight, I think, is going to be big. So right now, of all the indices, NQ is the strongest, and a lot of that has to do with Apple right now. Again, remember a lot. Looking at the bigger stocks, bigger movers in there, always help. And again, Apple being up, continuing to, it pulled back a little bit, but it's overall a positive day for Apple thus far. And then Tesla, kind of the same thing from where we closed to where we're opening. It is also opening up, so makes sense why these two guys are there. And again, Tesla being beat up a little bit last week, I think that will help provide some strength. Now, on the flip side of that, it is the strongest, but it's only up 0.62. I'm sorry, 0.26. Everything else is a little bit more negative today. And the VIX, it's up a little bit, but I think that's just the weekend, like what could happen over the weekend. And we're already starting to pull down because there is no headlines. And again, remember, the VIX is a volatility gauge. With lack of headlines, there's not really a whole lot to talk about. That tends to creep back to the downside, which again, lack of news tends to be good for the overall economy. Looking at the NQ itself, so you can see it's quite a big rally back from what we had late last week. Right now, it's kind of in between, two of the big levels, right? When I say big levels, I mean 15,000, 14,000. We're sitting in the middle. And this is kind of one of those ones it's a little bit harder to draw fibs on because it had such a big down draw last week. There's a couple areas you could draw it off of. Arguably, you could pull it from either of these two levels here. But I think just getting kind of a ballpark of where we're at, you can see that we're kind of sitting right now. We took a little bit of a bounce off the 50. If we use the level from the 20th and then the low on the 24th, it's kind of going off of it. Remember, the Europeans really didn't do a whole lot with it. There's not really like a huge force behind it right now. This is a level that's been hit before. It did spike up a little bit higher into the 14,000, was it 641? Really, we don't really have a whole lot stopping it. And if we can get up and break through that 14,700 level, it could open it up back up to the 15,000 mark. And I would say today, again, no news. A lot of times no news is good news, especially for the indices. Remember, everything is kind of beat up in the overnight. If we get any type of positivity at all, the strongest one tends to move the most with the NQ. So,
what's interesting, Brian, by the way, I just wanted to drop this chart over here because this is what we had actually had from last week. This is that it happens to be the same level we marked off last week where there were sellers coming in. We've had it once, twice. It just came short. We know that there are some sellers here. That's what we got to churn through. We churn through that. I would tend to agree with you. We've got some green light ahead of us.
Yeah, and again, dropping it down to a 15-minute, if you were looking at kind of where the pullback happened. Now, not everybody's taking a 7:15 in the morning pullback, but there was a level of basing. So we had this big push up again. If it does start to roll over and it looks like negativity is going to creep in, as you said, people are going to be talking about, oh my God, this is the worst month. And people read that and think, oh my God, we should definitely short it. So, if there is a lot of potential in that, again, if you're pretty confident with setting yourself, setting alerts, you can always set an alert right here at 14,354, right? There's a level of basing there. There's some buying. It did explode off because it was the weekend and it kind of touched again. But again, having a level like this with a strong, strong rally behind it, forming it, and we know there's buyers there because they saw price, but how many buyers is the big question. There's enough room here, and then again, the next buyers don't come in back down till 14,118. So if everything does take a really, really negative turn today, and again, we do get a breakthrough there, this is one of those potential Harry Potters where we drop base and then use that as our defined level of risk to take this lower. Overall, I think it should be more of an up day. We'll see what it does in the next 30 minutes. Again, 15-minute chart, see if we drive into a level. And again, if it pushes up right into that 14,520, could be a short at the open. But again, typically what we want to do is find out the trend, we want to maintain it and follow it for the day. This is a great level where we know we have buyers, but eventually those buyers will return in the sellers. So there could be a good opportunity to take that one short. And you guys can see that there's plenty of room to run to the downside. In fact, where we're really profit target technically would be at a 1 to 5.25, but our 1 to 3, you can see it's right there. It's not even that much movement, and that's the last time that we had even like a little bit of a hiccup on a 15-minute. So it's a pretty clear run back to the downside.
All right, that's a Nasdaq. Meanwhile, I've been, just punching in. What do we got for news this week? Clearly, the earnings news, something that we're all looking at for the Nasdaq with the interest rate decisions, because we didn't even talk about PMI numbers. We got Chicago PMI that comes out. I think is that today, and then
it's
tomorrow are the market
minutes.
and IS. Yeah, So we've got some of those that might be impacting some of these things as well. Would just be too much for us to cover. But really, I think beyond the Nasdaq and those earnings numbers, it really is the central bank numbers. And let's take a peek um, at what's going on in the Aussie dollar one, because that's
Yeah.
tonight, and then we can take a look at the pound and the euro, just knowing that we've got those coming out later this week. And there was a request around the Swiss yen. If you wanted to, I mean, we could certainly try to drop that in there if you get a chance. But let's just take a look over at the Aussie dollar first.
Yeah, and I would say, questions about news this week. Yeah, there's a lot of news this week, but it's the same type of trade playing itself out again tonight with the cash rate, Thursday with the
Yep.
cash rate for the pound, and then the euro. It's the same trade happening again. It happened last week with the dollar. So I mean, this is something we're going to see for the next 6 months to a year. It's when we mentioned that
Every
2022
time.
would be the year of currencies. This is what we're going to get. And again, on top of that, don't forget we have OPEC on Wednesday, and we have the ADP non-farm number, which has actually been huge. It was 807 last time. It was 210. So every single day this week, minus today, there's big blockbuster news out there. But Aussie dollar, and again, Aussie is rallying. Aussie is one of those ones that we've had a level up here. We've had something sitting up at 71.17. When we looked at the big push down, top to bottom, fib wise, it did bounce right off of a demand zone. So I mean, this was a zone that we were looking at. We had called, we had talked about it. It went right off of it, and now it's pulling back up again. The 23.6 didn't really do much, and again, I can send this across so you can kind of see it a little bit easier. But the 50% is the one that we're really looking for. We got a little bit more room to run, and it's got about 45 pips. Until tonight, it can absolutely move those 45 pips. There's two little hiccups that it has. Remember, typically what we're looking for is the market to pre-position itself. Now, with it rallying up again, all this European Aussie strength, a lot of the market is preparing for that rate hike. If they say that there's still factors out there, that leads us to a negative short. So, it's one of those games where, you got to look at it and say, okay, well, if the market is driving it up 5 days in a row, even if they decide that they're going to raise interest rates and they say it's going to be a surprise raise, the market already assumes that it's in. So it's already priced in. So if it does nothing, or they talk about what they're going to do down the road, that's a huge negative trade. So again, that's why it's so important to look at these. And again, this would be if you guys were using, I got to get off to 15. Like, this is really throwing me off. This one was a very, very easy draw top to bottom if you guys were doing it. It was from an old supply zone that we were looking to sell from, that the 72.66, all the way back down to the opposing demand zone. It's a pull. It's a retracement to the 50%, and that was the last little hookup. Strong push down, little bit of a base, strong push down. So this is a great level that I would have liked. It just happens to coincide with the 50% retracement level as well. Actually, the 50 is a little bit into it. So again, this is one of those things where you may get front run if you're a 50% trader versus an actual supply and demand zone trader. So I'd watch out for that one. And this is up just over 1% already for the day, and the U.S. hasn't even gotten involved yet. But I would expect a little bit of a pullback because of the U.S. stepping in. And then Aussie yen is the same thing. So yen took a bounce. We were actually looking for that one to break through, which is fine, and it didn't. It's there for next time. But as we're rallying back up again, we had another level, similar level that was tested very, very briefly and then shot back down again at 82.15. So two different potential trade setups for tonight. This one also has about 59 pips to move from now till basically 12 hours from now. So plenty of time to take those over. We need a little bit of help. But one of the nice things about this one is the dollar and the yen typically move in opposite directions a lot of times. So if one of these goes up, the other one may not. Or if they both go, we may be able to pull both of them to the downside tonight. So two good setups. And remember, you're not going to have a lot of U.S. volatility associated with this tonight at 10:30 and 10:30 p.m. So it's actually over 12 hours from now. I like it. You guys know how much I love these nice time releases, because again, you don't have the influence of the U.S. based trader in there. So,
all right. Anything? Do you want to just with the I know because we're probably going to wrap it up here because there really isn't a whole lot more. Is there anything to really be looking at for the pound or the euro, or do you want to cover that as we get later in the week?
Yeah, I mean, right now those releases aren't until Thursday, so there's not. I mean, the one headline that we have right now that came out a little while ago says the Bank of England is expected to impose back-to-back rate hikes for the first time since 2004. Right now, if you look into Thursday, they're showing they're already showing it in there, so you should be seeing a lot of pound strength. What's interesting about that right now is, you're seeing pound yen up, you're seeing pound dollar up, but you're seeing the euro pound up as well. So it looks like the Europeans are really starting to get some power back in there. So that could definitely be one to watch this week as people are preparing for that. Because remember, the way that the Europeans did it, They were basically saying we're just going to strategically allocate the money where it need to be for December, but then that's it. And it's off. No more governors. We're off to the races. We're going to start changing things. So this will really be the first meeting. That we're really going to get some. Okay, what's the European Union going to look like going forward? And remember, this is where they have their most problems, right?
Yep.
Because they have so many different nation states. Just because
it's great.
I mean, if it's great in Germany and France, they're like, we got to raise. Inflation's getting out of hand. But if Italy, remember, the pigs, Italy, Portugal, Greece, and Spain, smaller nations are still behind because of COVID. If you start raising it, you're making it difficult on the smaller countries. This is where you see all the chinks in the armor with the European Union. And this is why a world currency would not actually work. So some interesting things going forward. And again, they're still exposed to the Ukraine situation.
Yeah, and right, which we still don't really know. All right, so I mean, really, that's kind of going to set us up for this, at least for today. We'll cover more of it every day. Brian and I are back every morning all this week. We'll keep digesting whatever's going on in the markets, whatever news and whatever announcements come out. We'll adjust accordingly with that. Any questions for Nadex, please email us, customerservice@nadex.com. If you have any questions for Brian, you can certainly feel free to email Brian, support@keeptradingsimple.com. My email is also up there. I'm all ears on things that you guys would like us to cover and focus on throughout the week. And with that, really, again, it's just a quick recap. Nasdaq, we've seen some earnings out of some big names last week, and it's been split. And this week, we're going to have an interesting week with Amazon, Facebook, and Google also coming out with their earnings numbers. So that's certainly going to be in play. We've got all these currencies in play with all of the central banks making some announcements on their interest rates. So we are going to be seeing some volatility this week. We are going to get there. Brian and I will be back tomorrow morning. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us, and good luck in the markets.